Hello, it's me, Alicia Hashem, joining you here today. And I wanted to drop in with you for a little bit of an oracle, astrological reading of this moment in time that can kind of help us to feel more amazing, to take advantage of all the magic that's happening in the world, and just really utilize the energies of the cosmos and the Mother Earth and our own bodies to really work for us rather than against us. So today, as I was thinking about connecting with you and dropping into this session together, I was remembering that right now what's happening in the cosmos is that Mars is going retrograde. And so the planets in the sky will sometimes have these periods that we call retrograde. And what that means is that the planet actually, instead of moving in its usual pathway around the orbit and the elliptical, it reverses its role and it goes backwards, so to speak, for a minute. So just because of that happening and the magnetic pull that those planets have on us, it also can affect our life in very physical or emotional or psychological ways when a planet goes retrograde. It basically kind of like, it's like the planet's moving along and life is going a certain way. And then when a planet goes retrograde, it kind of turns upside down, so to speak. So this can actually be a time when it allows us to operate in a different way than we normally do. And, we might also be able to get to view things a little bit differently in our life. We kind of get to see like our reality from a different angle. And sometimes that can be, depending on like where the retrograde is aligning in your birth chart, it can also affect how those energies are showing up for you. So sometimes it's a really positive experience when the retrograde happens and, some breakthroughs can be happening. It can kind of challenge you to develop a different part of your brain. And so that's why I wanted to drop in with you today, is we're going to talk a little bit about how our brain is wired and kind of how these energies affect us when we go into these different parts of our brain, and we can build awareness in that so that we can get our brain to work for us and just have more awareness about our own mental health and how to help each other through that. So with Mars being retrograde, Mars is the warrior planet. It's really associated with like our passion, our action, the things that we fight for, the things that we, just that move us and drive us. It's a very powerful driving force. And so this planet can also has a connection with the planet Pluto. So when Mars goes retrograde, it's kind of a plutonic, transformative energy. And if you're familiar with the mythology side of it, Pluto is the god of the underworld and Mars is the god of war. So they kind of have this thing where it'll turn more into that Plutonian, we'll go into the underworld a little bit, and you'll be forced to reevaluate, your different relationships, romantic relationships. It could also activate the spiritual warrior in you, or maybe feel like there's a little bit of a psychic battle going on in your head. So this time is going to really push our boundaries. It's going to test patience. It's also going to bring an energy of confronting like the old way of life with a new way of life that's presenting itself. And there's kind of this revolutionary energy and this visionary thing that's stirring here. So in reality, why all of this happens is because Mars is our spur to take action and to improve our life in some way. So we have to have these reevaluation retrograde periods so that we can become more clear in how to, take proper action and where our energies should be going. So with all of this retrograde energy, we also have Mercury retrograde right now. And so this can cause some feelings of overwhelm, procrastination, avoidance. So I just want you to just kind of close your eyes and just take a moment to just acknowledge, do you find right now that you're feeling any sense of overburdened by responsibilities? Are you freezing up? Do you feel like you should be doing certain things, but you're not and you're avoiding it? Or maybe there's some things that you've kind of been putting off or you're putting off things like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, you know, and you're just not really doing the things that you'd like to. And so this is part of that energy where it's activating certain parts of our brain. So I just want you to realize that anytime you're feeling overwhelmed, procrastination, fear, or overburdened, that it's all stems from fear. So there's something that you're afraid of, and it's going to actually cause these feelings of overwhelm, procrastination, avoidance. And the whole goal of fear is to keep you alive. So I want to show you a little visual here about the brain and kind of what is going on in when we perceive a threat. So anytime you try to do something that's different or break the mold or go against what you and your family knew, or you try to manifest something new for yourself, it's immediately going to trigger the part in your brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala sits kind of like right behind our eyes in the center of the brain. And this area is like the control center of our brain. And it's basically designed to keep us alive anytime there's a threat or that's perceived in our environment. This little area right here, this little red dot, the amygdala, is going to get triggered, and it's basically going to control the entire body. As you can see in this diagram, it's just showing a snake. The eyes see it and perceive it, and just so you know, these threats it might be like a real threat, like this situation of snake, but it could also just be a perceived threat. Like if you're thinking that something is going to be too much work, or if you're avoiding certain things, it could be just a thought too. And so what happens is that amygdala gets triggered, and it actually triggers your digestive system, your heart rate, your blood pressure, all of your muscles respond and constrict. So actually, any time that we are feeling under threat or that we're in fear, our entire body tenses up. And so this can be kind of intense because it can actually cause a lot of health problems. So let me get this back here. And so what I want to help, and so instead of, now that you understand that this is how the brain works, anytime we try to set a stretch goal or do something we've never done, our brain's going to literally try to keep us in that same spot, because what could happen? You could die, and sometimes we have these fears, and sometimes those fears are based on past experiences. So maybe you've experienced trauma or failure, or you tried that before and it didn't work. And so then the brain will feed that loop into the amygdala and cause that fear response to be triggered. And so when you find yourself in procrastination, or whenever you're finding yourself feeling overwhelmed, or if you find that you're avoiding certain things that you feel you should be doing, just realize that amygdala is getting triggered, and you can ask yourself, what am I afraid of right now? What fear is showing up? What is that fear that's there? And so that's the first step, is acknowledging it. And so then the next step is you're going to want to use your tools. And your tools are going to be like your meditation practice, your mantras, your prayer, if you do any kind of guided visualizations. And what I usually do is I have like a whole notebook of tools that I'll kind of use, and literally we're going to like coax our brain out of the fear response, out of this, trigger, and start to create and carve a whole new pathway in the nervous system. So with knowing how the amygdala can tense up all of our bodies, I grabbed 2 essential oils that I love to use as part of my tools. And the reason why we use essential oils is actually because the first place that they go when we smell it is to the amygdala. So they're one of the only substances on the planet that can actually go straight to that control center and stimulate a certain kind of response. There's not a lot else that can. That's why it's there in our brain. It's there to kind of protect us. But our sense of smell will create that shift. So the first oil that we're going to use is a citrus oil. This is tangerine. And tangerine comes from the peel. It's just got the sweetest, brightest aroma. And so ideally you'll want to rub this on the solar plexus. That's right here, right in between your rib cage. The liver's right off to the right, and then the gallbladder's off to the left. So this is a really great spot to rub it because it's going to kind of help this area of your body that works so hard. This is your digestive system. It's everything, right? It gives us our nutrients. It helps us just show up in our life every day. And our livers can get super overburdened and overworked by a lot of our diets or lack of exercise and just eating foods that might not be the healthiest. So this is really, the solar plexus is our point of power, and this is going to allow creative energy to kind of flow out into the world, into physical manifestation. And so when you're rubbing this tangerine oil on, it's just going to help cleanse and clear and detox, but it's also going to help reactivate this feeling of joy and playfulness and creativity. And that's what we're wanting, right? With the bright aroma of the citrus oil, it automatically stimulates this feeling of happiness and like that everything is abundant and okay. And so it's this perfect way to bring this in and to set that intention and say, you know what? Instead of being in fear about reality, how can I shift into love? Because there's only two vibrations in the universe, love and fear. So you're either in love or you're operating in fear. There's no, it's either or. So if you find that you're in those fear-based, frustration, overwhelm, procrastination, fear can show up in many faces, but it all goes back to fear. So then we use this beautiful aroma of the citrus. It's very hard to be in a state of fear when you're breathing this in. And you just carry these around with you throughout the day because there's always going to be little triggers on the pathway that stimulate that fear. And so the next tool that we're going to use is another aromatic plant. This is basil essential oil. And so basil is a fabulous oil for anyone who's feeling overwhelmed, moody, fatigued. If you're finding that you have this inability to kind of cope with the stress that's showing up in your life and you're feeling super overwhelmed by that, basil is an oil that's going to restore you. And people will often even drink the tea of basil. They'll do the tulsi, which is part of the basil family, holy basil. And it's known as an adaptogen. And so that's why we use the essential oils, because they help the body to adapt as long as it's a pure plant. And same with, all of those herbs that people will drink in teas. It's going to strengthen your heart, relax your mind. If there's any nervous energy or anxiety or situations of depression, this is the kind of food that you want to give your body, and you just take a really high dose of basil. This is a wonderful brain tonic too. So anytime I notice that I'm in avoidance or overwhelm, and for some reason through all of these solar eclipse and lunar eclipse, I have felt so exhausted. The fatigue has been one of the strongest things that's really shown up. And so rubbing a little basil on these bones right behind your ears, or in other places on the adrenal glands on your lower back. And you just rub the basil in there. And ideally you would want to do it in the morning, right when you wake up, just so you can really kind of help activate your organs to function at a more optimal level. And you can also do it at night in the evening when you're winding down. It's really nice to have rub some oils on your feet, rub it on your lower back, and, just kind of allow these fearful feelings to dissolve and digest out of your body. And this is why we use the plants, and this is why we have our tools like meditation or chanting or listening to music, these different, almost invisible energies that can basically just help our body to digest fear and metabolize these energies and not hold onto those stressful vibrations. And, you know, once again, these eclipses will bring that energy up, and they're just kind of stirring up all this stuff that's in the mind that's ready to be cleared out so a new energy can come into the body. So allow that renewal and allow yourself with your deep breathing. Be sure to have your tools on hand, whatever you need to help you shift your mindset so you can operate in that higher vibration. So thank you for tuning into this week's reading with me. I'm going to stop the recording, and I would love to hear your comments about what you like to do when you see fear is showing up in your life. Have you found tools that work for you? If you've drawn any cards, or if you've had any aha oracle readings, I would love to hear about that in the comment section, or just tune in to the video.